Where do you want to start today?
Hey
On the,
base.
I'm sorry.
Hey base sounds good.
Okay. If a person brings his pots into another's yard without permission, and the other person's animal breaks them, he is exempt. If it is injured, if it goes, if he is injured by them, the owner of the pots is liable. If he brings them on with permission, the owner of the yard is liable. If one brings his produce into another's yard without permission and the other person's animal eats them, he is exempt. If he is injured by them, the owner of the produce is liable. If he brings them in with permission, the owner of the yard is liable. If one brings his bull into another's yard without permission and the other person's bull gores it and the other person's dog bites it, he's exempt. If he gores the other person's bull, the owner of the goring bull is liable. If it falls into his pit and it makes it sport afoul, he's liable. If his father or his son was in it, he pays ransom. But if he brings it in with permission, the owner of the yard is liable. Rebbe says in no case is he liable unless he accepts to watch. If a bull aims for another bull and strikes a woman, causing her to abort, its owner is exempt from paying the value of the fetus. But if the person aims for another person and strikes a woman, causing her to abort, he pays the value of the fetus. How does one pay the value of the fetus? We appraise how much the woman was worth before giving birth and how much she is worth since giving birth. Since said Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, if he's so, when the woman gives birth, she increases in value. Rather, we appraise how much the fetus was worth, and he gives it to her husband. If she has no husband, he gives it to his heirs. If she has been a slave who was freed or a proselyte, he is exempt. Okay.
Okay. Hachofer bor b'rishus hayachid. So a guy comes and digs a pit in his own property. Upsacho lirishus harabim, and it has an opening in it into the public domain. Or right, he makes the pit b'rishus harabim, upsacho lirishus hayachid, and he opened it into his own domain. Rishus hayachid upsachal rishus hayachid acher, or he put it in his domain and opened it into another private domain. In all of these cases, somebody else comes and falls into his pit, or an animal falls into his pit. He is chayav for the damages. Hachofer bor birshus harabim v'nafal lesoch shor o chamor v'meis chayav. And the same goes if it's entirely in the Rishus Harabim. I'm not sure why this is a separate case that's brought different from all of the combination cases. Um, but that's kind of the classic case, if anything, of the Bor Rishus Harabim, is that you made the pitch in the Rishus Harabim, you're chayav for the damages, even if not. Perhaps the intent is that even if none of it belongs to you, the whole chiddush of the Bor is that even if it's not doesn't belong to you, but you created it, you're liable for it. Okay. Echad hachofer bor, sheikh, mara, charitzin, uneitzin. These are all different shaped pits. Like a pit is like a bor is a normal, like a sort of a circular pit that goes deep. Sheikh is a ditch that is long and narrow. Mara is like it's like a cave, but that's the word for a cave. But it's I think they said it was a sort of a square kind of a ditch, and a charitz is a
Quadrangular pit.
it's wide and square. Wait, so the Mara is like oh, it's a
Wait,
covered. So
wedge,
Mara is like is that it's covered.
wedge like
Right,
ditches.
right, and that's the ni'itzin or the wedge-like ditches. Okay, all of them he's chayav. Imkain, lama ne'emar bor. So then why does the Torah just say bor? Ma bor sheyesh bo kedei lahamis asarat tfachim kol sheyesh bo kedei lahamis asarat tfachim. So just to teach us that the same measurement applies to all types of diggings that might cause damage. If it's 10 tfachim deep, then if an animal falls in and dies, that is you're chayav for that animal. Hayu pechusin me asra tvachim. Now, what happens if the ditch was only 9 tvachim deep? The nafal lesocho shor or chamor v'meis, and a donkey or an ox fell into the ditch and Taka still died, even though it wasn't deep enough. Pater. Yeah, okay, that is not considered as if it was the person who dug it's fault. It's that's basically some freak accident that happened that made an animal die because it shouldn't have died from a fall into nine tefachim. V'im huzak bo chayav. However, if the animal is damaged by it, so it broke a leg or something like that, then yeah, that he would still have to pay damages for. But if it died from it, then interestingly, he's patur because that's classed as a freak accident. Mishna Vav bor shel shnei shutafim. So two guys went in together and dug a well. They found some groundwater and they dug a well and they made a cover for it because that's what you're supposed to do when you have a well. You have to make sure that people can't fall into it. Avar alav harishon v'lo kisahu. Now the first guy came past the well and he opened it up and he took some water out of it. And what's not explicitly stated in this Mishnah is the fact that he took the cover and saw that his friend was coming along and said, "Yeah, I'm leaving the cover off. I'm giving the," and he gives the cover to his friend to say, "Okay, this is now your responsibility." Okay, and the second guy comes, and he also fails to cover it. He just drops the cover on the side and gets his water and then moves on his way. And now somebody falls in or an animal falls in and gets and dies from it. Hasheni chayav. It's only the second guy who's chayav because the first guy passed the responsibility over to the second guy and he accepted it. Kisau harishon. Now what happens? The first guy did put the cover back on the well. Uba hasheni matzah megule. He came past and found it was open. Now, this can't be a situation where another person came past and opened it. Because if another person came past and opened it, then they're the one who's chayav. Okay, what happened over here is that it became uncovered through natural causes. So, not necessarily even that a tornado came and took the cover off, but he came past and found that actually the cover has rotted. Maybe there was he sees worms crawling through it and says, this thing is weak, but he doesn't cover it. Hasheni chayav. Second guy is now chayav because he had a chiyuv to cover up the well so that nobody could fall through it. Once he saw that the cover was no longer fit for purpose. Kisahu karoi. Now what happens if he does cover it up properly? It's a good cover. And now an ox comes and walks on top of it, and for whatever reason, the ox was like jumping or something like that, and it broke the cover and it fell in. There you pater. You covered it according to your responsibly, and you can't be held liable for anything that happens after that. If he didn't cover it properly, if he put a weak cover on top of it and something fell through it and died, he is chayav for the damages. Nafal lefanav mikol hakriya chayav. Now, what happens if an animal was standing by the edge of the ditch and it got a fright from a noise behind it? It fell forwards into the pit. Then he's chayav for that. That's exactly the same as if it had walked in. La'acharav mikol hakriya. However, if it fell backwards from the noise of construction happening inside the pit, so basically it fell onto the ground. V'huzakba. Okay, and it was damaged by that. Now this by the way is interesting because I've never read this Mishnah this way, but I read the Art Scroll commentary. It was saying I thought that the animal was standing with its back to the pit and it fell backwards in, and I was wondering why there should be any difference. But I think what the Art Scroll commentary seems a little more sensible. That what's happening is it didn't actually fall into the pit. It just fell backwards from the noise of construction inside the pit, and hurt itself on the ground. From that he's patur. Nafal nesocho shorva kela v'nishtabru. What happens if the donkey was carrying a whole bunch of things on top of it? It had saddlebags and it had kalim on top of it, and they fell into so an ox or a donkey fell into the pit with all of the things that they're carrying, and not only the ox or the donkey was killed, and the things they were carrying got damaged. Chayav al habehema upator el kalim. He's only chayav for the damages to the animal, nothing about the kalim. That's just a gezeres hakasov. It's not like a logical thing. It's just that because we have a gezeres hakasov, that it speaks only about the donkey, it doesn't speak about what it was loaded with. Nafal lesocho shor cheresh shotiv katan chayav. Um, if a if an ox or a donkey that was not of sound mind, I guess you get them with animals as you do with humans, um, and it's and it fell into the pit. You're also chayiv on that. Now here's an interesting thing. It says here ben or bas eved or ama patur. Now, before we get on to that last one, the art scroll on this said that you would not be chayav on a regular ox or donkey that walked forward into the pit, because animals are presumed to look where they're going. Now, if it was purely uncovered, if it was poorly covered, if it had a weak cover on it, then you'd be chayav on that. But for a regular ox that knows how to walk properly no sane animal is going to walk into the pit. So if an animal does walk into an uncovered pit, it would be on the nizak to prove that his animal was actually not of competent mind in order to claim the damages. Although maybe the etzim fact that it walked into the pit might be enough. Anyway, Ben or Bas, what happens if a child walks into the pit, or Eved or Anama? Um, if he is so for a Ben or Bas, even though they're katanim, and a slave walks into the pit, he is pater for the damages there. Right? Because because we're talking about a shore and not an Adam. Although, let me say that if a person falls in, he is liable for damages. In terms of if the person chas v'shalom died, he's pater from the kofir, or for ben or bas. Yeah, what would he be? Sorry, this doesn't make sense to me. Just give me a second to open up my art scroll again. Hmm. Okay, if a young boy or a girl or a male or female Canaanite slave fell into the pit and died, he's not obligated to pay. Now, why would the slaves, children and slaves, children in order to teach that although children cannot be expected to avoid obstacles, and thus the blame for their death lies with the owner of the pit, the Torah exempts him from payment and mentions the slaves in order to teach that even though they're owned by others, the law exempting the owner from payment for the death of people applies to Canaanite slaves as well, since they too are people. The only owner of a pit is exempt only where the victim died. If the victim was merely injured, the owner must pay. Okay, so basically it's a yeah. So okay, so he pays for the death of animals, but he doesn't pay for the death of people inside the pit. Okay, next.
Hmm.
Echad shor be'echad kol behema linfilas habor. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about a shore or any other animal that falls into a pit. Well, hafrashas Har Sinai. Similarly, the pasuk talks about separating animals from Har Sinai. Big Baltais Har Kidashto. Okay, the ulatashtum ekefel. And if a thief is caught with the animal in his possession, he has to pay the double payment. Shava Saveda, right? It also speaks there about a shore that you should not see your neighbor's shore going astray and ignore it. The Prika, when it talks about seeing the animal being overloaded and you must go and help him to unload the animal. The Chasima lo tachsom shor b'disho, right? You're not allowed to muzzle the ox while it's threshing. The Kilaim, and plowing with an ox and a donkey together. and Ula Shabbos, and you must giving your animals rest on Shabbos. So in all these cases, the shore is mentioned explicitly in the Torah. But it doesn't matter. This is this and this applies to all animals. V'chein chaya v'of ki yotze behen. And similarly, when it comes to wild animals and birds, anything where this would be applicable, any of these mitzvahs that are applicable or damages, are all just as applicable to those animals as they are to a shore. In Kain lama nemar shor or chamor. So why does the Torah speak about shor and chamor? Ela shedibar kaso behove, because the Torah just speaks in the most common case. That's your typical case of where people use oxen and donkeys to do their work, and therefore that's your most common case. But it's not that it doesn't apply to any other kind of animal.
Okay.
Okay, back to Gimel.
Um, Gimel Aleph. If one leaves a jug in the public domain and someone else comes along and stumbles over it and breaks it, he is exempt. If he is injured by it, the owner of the jug is liable for his injuries. If one's jug broke in a public domain and someone slips on the water or was hurt by the shards, he is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says if he intended, he is liable. If he did not intend, he's exempt. If one spills water in a public domain and someone else is injured by it, he is liable for his injury, and whoever seizes it first acquires it. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says all who litter the public domain and cause damage are liable to pay, and whoever seizes them first acquires them. If one turns over dung in a public domain and someone else is injured by it, he is liable for his injury. If two potters were walking in one after the other, and the first one stumbled and fell, and the second one stumbled over the first one is liable for the injuries of the second one. If one came from with his jug and another came with his beam, and this one's jug broke on that one's beam, he is exempt, since the one that has the right to walk and the one has the right to walk. Since this one has the right to walk and that one has the right to walk. If the owner of the beam was first and the owner of the jug second, and the jug broke on the beam, the owner of the beam is exempt. But if the owner of the beam stopped, he is liable. If, however, he said to the owner of the jug, stop, he is exempt. If the owner of the jug was first and the owner of the beam second, and the jug broke on the beam, he is liable. But if the owner of the jug stopped, then he is exempt. If, however, he said to the owner of the beam, stop, he is liable. The same applies if one comes with his candle and this one with his flax.
Okay, stop. I think you skipped a page. I lost track of you somewhere along the way. But there are actually some short Mishnayos here. Yeah, so basically,
All right.
so yeah, we should have stopped before hey. Beg your pardon. That was all. There were just a bunch of short Mishnayos. Never mind. Okay.
All right.
Yitzin.
Okay. We have Vav Stalin. If a woman said, bring me my get, she may eat truma until she get reaches her hand. If she said, receive my get from me, she is forbidden to eat truma immediately. If she said, receive my get from me in such and such a place, she may eat truma until the get reaches that place. If Eliezer prohibits it immediately. If one says, write a get and give it to my wife, divorce her, or write a letter and give it to her, they may write and give it to her. If he said, release her, provide for her, or do for her as customary, or do for her as proper, he did not say anything. Originally, they said if one goes out and changes and says, write a gift for my wife, they write and give it. They later said, oh, also one who set us out to sea and one who leaves in a caravan. Reb Shimon Sari says, also one who is in danger. If someone was thrown into a pit and he said that whoever hears his voice, should write a get for his wife, they shall write and give it. If a healthy man said, write a get for my wife, he's allowed to taunt her. It happened that my healthy man said, write a get for my wife, and he went up to the top of the roof and he fell and died. From Shimon Gamil says that the sages said if he fell on his own, if it is a get. If the wind pushed him, it is not a get. If someone said the two persons give a get to my wife,
We're done. We're done. Yeah, that was three.
okay,
Okay.
to us.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Yud Gimel Aleph. Two judges of decrees were in Yerushalayim, Adman and Hanan ben Abisalom. Hanan said two things, Adman said seven. If someone overseas and his wife demands sustenance, Hanan said she must swear at the end, but she did not swear at the beginning. The sons of the Kohanim Golim differed with him and said she must swear both at the beginning and the end. Reb Joseph ben Harkinis occurred with their views. The Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai, Hanan as well. She need not swear except at the end. If someone went overseas and someone else came forward and supported his wife, Hanan says he lost his money. The sons of the Kohen Gedolim differed with him and said, let him swear how much he spent and recover it. Dosa ben Harkin is concerned with the view that Yoganam ben Zakkai. Kanan said, well, he's granted his money. Adman says 7. If someone dies and leaves sons and daughters, in the event that there is much property, the sons inherit and the daughters are supported. If there's a little property, the daughters are supported, but the sons may go begging. Adman says, because I'm a male, do I lose? Said Rama Gamil, I approve of Adman's view. If one claims vessels from oil
Done.
from an...
Done.
Okay. Wrong. Erevin.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, Vav, hey. If a haystack between two cars is 10 feet high and they make two Erevin, but they may not make one Erev. They may feed from this side and those feed from that side. If the hay was reduced to less than 10 fists, they may make one Erev, but maybe not make two Erev. How do we make a shittu for an alley? One places a barrel and declares, let this belong to all the residents of the valley. He may confer possession to them through his adult son or daughter, through his Jewish manservant and maidservant, and through his wife, but he may not confer possession to his minor son or daughter, nor through his Canaanite slave woman, because their hand is like his hand. If the food became diminished, one may add and confer possession, but he does not have to and notify them. If more residents were added, he may add and confer possession, and he must notify them. Okay.
Okay. So that.
Mikvos, Mikvos.
Yes.
Yud Chet. If one ate tummy foods or drank tummy liquids and then immersed himself and then vomited them up, they remain tummy because they do not become purified in the body. But if they drank tummy water and then immersed himself and then vomited up, it is tahor because they can become purified in the body. If one swallowed a ring that is tahor and he's entered a tent containing a corpse and then he himself sprinkled upon, and the sprinkle repeated, and he immersed himself and then he vomited up, it was as before. If one swallowed a ring that is tamei, he can immerse himself and eat truma. If he vomits it up, he is still tamei and it renders him tamei. If an arrow is stuck into a person when it is visible, it intervenes. If it is not visible, it may not immerse himself and eat truma.
Hadron
Okay.
Allah, Masefes Mikvaos. Okay, so you don't have nida, so I'm gonna just go ahead and read. Shammai Omer, Kol Hanashim Dayan Shatan. All women their expected time is suffices for them. Hillel says from examination to examination, even for many days. Chachamim say not like this, not like that one. From 24 hours, it reduces from examination to examination, and from examination to examination reduces for the 24 hours. So basically, the lesser of the two, either since her last examination or 24 hours, whichever is shorter. Call ish sheyesh la veses isha, any woman who has an expected period. Dayashata, then it's enough that when she saw from when she saw the blood. If a woman has relations with examination clots, that is exactly like an examination. And that also reduces the 24 hours maximum. So how is it so that you have dayashata enough is the time? I say yesheves b'mita v'asuka b'taros. So she's sitting on her bed and she's busy dealing with things that are meant to stay tower. Let's say she's a wife of a kohen, she's busy dealing with truma. Or per shavira asa, and she got up and she sees blood. He tmeya, so she herself obviously is tame. Kulan tuhoros, and everything that she was working with and is no longer in contact with is considered tahor because we only take it from that moment and onwards. Af al pi she'amru mata'ama me'es la'es, ena mona ela misha shirata. Even though we say that she's typically tame for 24 hours, this one only counts from the time that she saw blood. Okay.
Cooling?
We have Chulin. I'm just running a little late, and these are quite long Mishnah. So you know what? Let me leave you to do the last two Chulin by yourself.
I
Okay.
don't. To find what happens to the other one. Funny. I was thinking, I said, who in my house here with our ages needs a volume one?
Mishnah. It's not halacha.
So I don't know. All right.
Okay. Have a
Thank
good
you for
day.
listening to